Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Uprise webinar with me, Nigel Polak, on financial mindset learned or chosen. So compared to last week's webinar, we don't have that many here today so far, but the numbers are slowly creeping up. So yes, say hi, and also say yes or no if you were at the webinar last week on finances and budgeting. I imagine most people would be yes, 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 but not everyone. Yes, 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 many no. Okay, good. So it does build on it, but it's going to be quite different to last week's. Last week's was about the pragmatics of finances, budgeting, and even wealth creation. And this week is about the psychology, about the mental stuff that gets in the way. So last week's was very kind of information driven and informative and educative. This week's is going to be much more personal, and so it's going to require you to participate either by I'm going to ask lots of questions, and I want you to put your answers in the chat. I wouldn't the chat's not available in the video, and I wouldn't worry about people seeing your name, because there's going to be so much. If you all contribute, there's going to be so much information flowing through the chat that it's just going to be some good grist for the mill for people, and it really lets me know that that you're participating. So if you don't want to write it in the chat, then have a pen and paper handy, have a pad handy, and if you don't have a pad handy, then get out some notes or open up a document on your device so that you can make some notes. So this is like you're in a coaching session with me, and you're going to go through a coaching process. All right. So I'd like to acknowledge the Gumbaynggirr peoples, upon whose country I'm currently sitting, as the traditional custodians of the lands upon which I meet with you today, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. And I also extend a warm welcome to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are with us here today. Welcome. I am a psychological coach at Uprise. That means I'm a psychotherapist and counsellor, and I teach psychotherapy and counselling to counsellors, psychologists, social workers, and I supervise many psychologists and social workers and counsellors. And I provide a lot of therapy through a lot of different spaces, and I also do a lot of things like this, webinars. So I'm going fast because I want to get to the good stuff, and there's some good stuff to get to. So this is the contextualizing. Today we're going to look at you, and we're going to look at your relationship with your money and your finances. We're going to look at your feelings about money and your feelings about finances. And then we're going to look at your thoughts about money and your thoughts about finances. We're going to tie these things together, and we're going to retrain your thinking around money and finances towards a mindset that's more favorable to you accumulating the money and the wealth, and having a relationship to money and wealth that you deserve. People go, oh well, I don't need to worry about this. I don't have to budget. I don't have to do this, because anything could happen. You could lose it all in a day. Yeah, anything could happen. So why don't I just live for the moment? And people say, oh, people, when I say, sometimes say, well, what's your financial dream? Oh, win the lotto, because then I'll win the lotto and I'll have 1 million or 2 million or 50 million or 60 million, and then I'll never have to worry about money again. Well, that's just not true, because we have a lot of evidence now, a lot of data that says that 70% of people who win the lotto, so about 3/4 of people who win the lotto, end up bankrupt within 5 years. So you can have this big onset of money, but you will then likely, if you haven't got the right mindset, you are going to lose that money before too long. People cannot hang on to money. There's a lovely quote that says, water always finds its level, and that's just the idea that water will always sort of balance out. And the quote refers to the idea that wherever your mind is, whatever value you've put on yourself, if you've said, well, I'll never make more than $50,000 a year, or I'll never have more than $100,000 in the bank, then you will make that happen. If you've said to yourself, oh, I'll never be a millionaire, that's not the kind of person I am, or I don't like people who are rich anyway, so I wouldn't want to be one of them, then your mind will keep you at that level. And until you break out of that mindset, you will be stuck at a certain level of finances. And many of you will be experiencing this. You'll be thinking to yourself, oh, yeah, that's about right. I've been able to pay off my car and I've got my mortgage, but I just don't seem to really get ahead. And we always point at external factors. Oh, it's the government, and it's the tax, and it's the price of petrol, and it's the cost of this, and it's the cost of that. But actually, it's really not those things. It's actually mindset. Another lovely quote that that people talk about is in sort of wealth building spaces is that if you think about how much money is flowing around the world, like it's trillions of dollars worth of value floating around the world, and it's like a big river. It's just floating around, and all you need to do is just get a little sieve and get a little bit of it, and go, well, I'm going to take a little bit of that. Now, I'm not. I've got my own level, so I'm not sort of aspiring to be super wealthy. But I also like the idea of being comfortable. I also like the idea of financial freedom. I like the idea of being able to choose what I do, when I do, and how I do it. And so this webinar, we're going to go ahead now and look at some of your beliefs, some of your thoughts, some of your experiences, some of your attitudes towards money and finances. So as a starting point, how would you describe your relationship with money and finances? Do not think too much. If you're happy to write it in the chat, just drop it in the chat. That'll give me something to focus on and give me a sense that people are thinking about it, and we can move on. Anxious, great. That's a good response. Measured, Scrooge, good relationship, could be better. Relaxed, random, daunted, fantastic. Anxious, hate thinking about it. Yep. Health and freedom. That's a nice attitude. Daunted, scary. Daunted come up a couple of times. Scary, responsible, unsure. I always get what I need. Lovely. So there's some different comfortable, stingy, unhealthy. Good. So good starting point. So we're starting to tune into that bit of what of your experience that we're wanting to focus on in today's webinar. So hold that. Yeah, we're going to go into that. So then take that, what's my relationship to money, whatever it is, what's your family's history in relation to money and finances? Do you come from a family of billionaires? Do you come from a family of paupers? Does your family, so somebody's saying accounting, they came from a family of accountants, the people who count. What are you doing in this webinar? Hardworking. Yeah, so many of us, particularly migrants, there's so many of us who come from migrant families. They come, they work hard, they go, they sit in the factory, they work, they eventually pay off a house. Oh, I've done it. Australian dream, have a house. But is that have they then handed that over to you? I have a lot of clients who go, oh, I just got to work. Well, when's it enough? Oh, it's never enough. Well, why is it never enough? Because you might lose it any minute. My family's Jewish. Absolutely, it's true. Yeah, for thousands of years, Jewish people have been accumulating wealth, and then someone comes in and goes, we'll take that. Thanks very much. We're going to lock you up in some sort of pogrom or prison camp, and we're just going to take everything that you own. And so there's this kind of culture of, I've got to hang on to it. I can't let it go. What's your family, Astrid? Yeah, farmers. That's a good one. People had farmers, hardworking, business. Very people have money. Some people, most people, a lot of people have, might be the first people in their family to go to university, to get a tertiary education, might be the first professional in their family. So your family history, it settles deep in you, it settles deep, and it's difficult to dislodge, and it informs the way you see money and finances, the way you experience it. Have a think about some of the stories, some of the quotes or truisms that your family or friends told about money, wealth, and those that have it. I'm sort of holding back on the examples because I want people to just come up with them. So just some people said not much money when we were younger, guarded, didn't like to talk about money, single parent family, hardworking. Money was never a focus. So what was the focus? What was the focus? Yeah, you can either you can live or you can be rich. Family time is the priority. It's all about spending time as a family. It's lovely, isn't it? I love spending time as a family. But you can't spend time as a family and be making a lot of money at the same time. You can't be financially secure. You can't be enjoying all the other fruits that life might have to offer. People talk about being unlucky with money. Everyone's waiting to take your money from you. She'll be right. Yes, when it comes to money, she'll be right. Don't have to worry about that. And look, in this country, they're kind of right. You lose your job, the government gives you some money. You become a single mother, the government gives you some money. You can't afford some housing, get some rent assistance or get into public housing. There's a safety net we have here. There's a safety net in our sort of, that's the socialist aspect of our countries. That we've just had an election, it's swung back to Labor. Labor's big into hospitals and welfare and supporting the working man and woman, and also supporting the poor. So we do have a safety net. So there's kind of a truism there. You can be lucky or unlucky. Everyone's waiting to take it away from you. You can either have children or you can have money. So it's only people without children who actually make money, because children, they're pretty expensive. They reckon average child has cost about $100,000, and that was actually probably about a decade ago, so it's probably $200,000 now. Money will cause trouble and undermine your relationships. Draw a line on how much money you require. So you set a limit. That's it. You just got to live. There's a poverty line, and then there's my line, and I'm going to live somewhere between my line and the poverty line. God will provide. That's a lovely sentiment, and it puts faith. Which the wonderful thing about faith is that faith is a way to dislodge or disperse our own anxiety and our own responsibility for living. And it's very liberating. It's very, very freeing, and it does enable us to be more open to the possibilities that God or the universe might be making available to us. Don't let grandma starve in the street. Need versus want. Applying need versus want when purchasing. Work hard, take calculated risks. Yeah, if you were in my webinar last week, that sort of goes back to some of that kind of thinking. What about you? What are the stories that you tell about money, wealth, and those who have it? Just trying to think. Some of the, there's some language that we use around really wealthy people, and there's metaphors. Often we use a porcine, a porcine. We use porcine metaphors. So we often talk about people with money in kind of a pig-like fashion, or we think that people with money are controlling, or we suggest that they're selfish, or we suggest that they're privileged in some way, and that there's something something offensive about being privileged. Yes, that we might sort of associate wealth with weight, with body weight, and we sort of a kingpin, and we have these characters who are very wealthy, but who are also very big. People who we might see people who are wealthy as people being stingy. People can still have life problems. Money doesn't solve your problems, and money. And there's a story that we tell. Money can't buy happiness. That's true. Money can't buy happiness, but there's a lot of stuff that money can buy, and there's a lot that money can do for you, particularly around freedom and where you choose to apply your energy when money ceases to be a problem. People with money are so here's a good story. So people with money have the privilege to take risks, which can pay off hugely in a way that other people who don't have that much money can't. Yeah, people with money by definition are privileged. Having money is a privilege. That's what the word means. So money is exact in that definition. Money and privilege are precisely equated with one another. Good guys, keep at it. So you think you're looking at the world. We all think we're looking at the world, but actually, what we're doing is we're unpicking our own psychology. One of the big key psychological insights is that what's happening out there has nothing to do with what's happening in here, and what we think is happening out there isn't happening out there. It's happening in here. So it's all distorted. And even we're going to try and clean it up today, but we're still going to end up with a distorted version of reality. So what we're unpicking is, what's your distortion? What have you done to reality? Okay, so money buys chocolate, and chocolate makes me happy. What does it mean about you What does that mean about what you believe about money and wealth and those that have it? So, having thought about all the things that we've talked about, the stories, your family, your history, your relationship with money, what does that mean about what you believe about money, wealth, and those that have it? Money begets money. I'm getting into an argument about the definition of privilege. A special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular group of people. Money is privilege. Money begets money. You need money to make money. Okay, so what does it mean about your beliefs about money? Because what we dig into is if we're talking about privilege, well, what do you feel about people who are privileged? What do you feel about the idea that you might be privileged? What might happen to you if you become one of those privileged people? What would that mean about who you are? So what does it mean about the beliefs? I believe that the more money I have, the less people like me. People who have wealth and money have it because it was given to them. A bit of bitterness. Good. Be open to it. This is what you're here for. I always think that I'm going to be terrible with money like my parents. Wealth is a desired outcome, but I hope I would remain level-headed and grounded. I believe that money equals freedom. Good. So if you believe that money equals freedom, have a think about your relationship with freedom. What do you believe about freedom? Do you deserve to be free? Have you earned the right to be free? Are you free? Are you allowed to be free? What happens if you are free? Money's an enabler, gives freedom to make choices. If I have more money, I can help more people. I've always fended for myself and done okay, but now I've hit a plateau. I need some guidance. More choices. Okay, good. So we're tuning into beliefs. Beliefs will then lead to feelings. So we've talked a bit about feelings. Below, money isn't my priority in life, but it's a privilege I hold as I have enough. Yes, what's enough? What's enough for me? What's enough for you? And that's all individual. Feelings about money. So what kind of feelings come up? People talk about anxious, daunted, in their relationship with money. So drill in a bit further. So when you think about money, when you think about finances, when you think about possibly looking after your finances, when you think about having more money or wealth than you have at the moment, what kinds of feelings come up? So I've just sort of grabbed a few there and put them in that word cloud. Someone said no freedom equals stress, disappointment, regret. So the ones I've got in there, there's some common ones. People feel a lot of guilt around money and finances, anxiety, desperation. People get angry at the money they don't have, angry when they lose money, angry at people that do have wealth that they don't have. They have that privilege that they don't have. People get angry at the abuse of power that they perceive. People with money perpetrating anxiousness, anxiety, pride. Great. Pride's a good one. Concerns for the future. I think money brings up a lot of shame when we compare ourselves to other people. I often hear people comparing themselves to their brothers, to their sisters, to their uncles, to their aunts, to their cousins, or being compared by family members to their brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, cousins, or, for many of us, cousin Tony's friend Peter, who look at all the money that he made selling shoes. Why can't you do that? So there's often shame involved in when we think about money. Anxious, worry, feeling of not having enough, wishing I could do better. I have enough, but I'm not doing what I should be doing with it. So there's the money that we have, and then there's the question of what we do with it. A lot of people spend a lot of time worrying about money. So I'm just going to touch for a couple of slides on worrying. Worries are thoughts that keep repeating and spiraling. These worries are driven by your mind's attempt to avoid a future threat by predicting the consequences of different possibilities. So worry is when your brain's going, oh, I feel like something's going to go wrong. I've got some information. I've received some evidence. I've received some sort of signal that something's might go wrong. And worry is when you go, okay, what are all the different possibilities? Now the trouble is that your brain tends to circle. It's our short-term memory sort of goes, okay, it's a bit like the goldfish going around the goldfish bowl. That the goldfish swims around the goldfish bowl and goes, oh, here's a new place. Haven't been here before. As soon as we're around the goldfish bowl, oh, here's a new place. Haven't been here before. Our brains are a bit like that. Our short-term memory works like that. We're working on a problem and we sort of go around and then we come back to the beginning. It's like, oh, and then we start all over again. And it's that process that keeps us up at night. So irritating. We think we're making progress and then we just go, oh, hang on, I'm just back where I started and I forgot what I was even thinking about. There's a simple antidote for worries, and that is to write them down. It seems like such a simple step. It doesn't seem that it would work, but it's so powerful. It's evidence-based. It's proven. It reduces your worries. It enables you to sleep better, and it enables you to focus on the solution. The thing that what it is that you do want, rather than the problem, which tends to be focused on what you don't want. So if you find yourself worrying, I do this all the time now. Wake up at night, go to the loo, come back to bed, and it's like mind's going around. It's like, oh no, I'm not even going to put up with it. Wake up, get out my phone, type it into my notes, put it down. Sometimes I'll just solve the problem there and then. It takes me half an hour, but I'd rather spend that half an hour solving that problem in 4 o'clock in the morning than spending the next 1 or 2 hours going around and around in circles, going, oh, I wish I could go to sleep, wish I could go to sleep. So just write it down. If we had more money, I would feel a greater sense of security. I'd be able to support our children in their future. Feelings of anxiety about not having enough to be able to have enough in retirement. Yeah, a lot of worries about in retirement. All right, so we're going to get really into the grits of it now. So you've started to tune in there to the feelings, and the cognitive process is called cognitive behavioral therapy, and this is the retraining thinking skill that you can find in the Uprise modules. And the theory is that which is followed by most of psychology today, is that thoughts lead to feelings. We think that reality happens and we have a feeling in response to it. Okay, psychologists say no. A thing happens, you have a thought in response to that thing that happens, and then you have a feeling in response to the thought. So what we're doing is we're tuning into the thought. So what you started to tune in here. So I've got the feeling, worry, anxiety. What's the thought that you have? Some of the thoughts people are having, I should be doing more with the money I have. I'd feel safer if I had more money. I'm anxious about not having enough for retirement. So tune into those thoughts if you can and write it down. So I want you to write down the worry, write down the feeling, write down the thought. So what is the thought that you have that triggers your feelings about money and finances, your bad feelings? As a female, I'm more susceptible to positive marriage age. I'm going to be alone in my own age. I'm not going to have enough. I'm going to be poor. I'm not going to do the things with the money that I have that I want to. And you might have just like my dad, just like my mum, just like my grandpa. That might be back there. And then you can ask yourself, and this is a 5-step process. You go, you should write down. Okay, here's my thought. Number 1, what does it mean about me if I'm susceptible to poverty in my old age? What does it mean about me if I'm not going to have enough in retirement? What does it mean about me if I'm not able to support my children? And then again, number 2, what does it mean about me if, and then you go to the one above. Then you go 3, what does it mean about me if, and you go to number 2. What does it mean about me if, you go to number 3. 5, what does it mean about me if I'm, go to number 4. What that does is it drills down into your core beliefs about yourself. The next step, okay, I'll give you a minute, but just see if you can write that down. This starts to get a bit sensitive now, so I can see people have stopped typing it in, but do it for yourself. What does it mean about me if that's my thought? Because the thought, the model is that thoughts come from beliefs. So if you've got a thought, and the thought creates a feeling, anxiety, worry, stress, daunted, whatever that feeling is, then you come back to go, oh, well, it's the thought that caused the feeling. Well, the thought is coming from, it's like a tree. The thought's kind of the leaves, but the core of it is coming from the trunk and roots of the tree, which is your beliefs, your core beliefs. And so that process of what does it mean about me if takes you back to your core belief. And you can ask yourself, what's the consequence for me and for others that I care about of believing that thought or believing that belief, what is the consequence? Normally the consequence, actually I've got some consequences here. This is these are common consequences of believing those thoughts. You feel bad, feel overwhelmed, feel depressed, feel anxious, feel daunted. People can feel resentful or start blaming other people or situations. You might find that you're unproductive. You find it hard to focus. We mentioned earlier, you might not be able to fall asleep. You might feel like trying, like not trying and giving up. You might feel like you have to hide who you are from others because it's bad in some way. You might act in ways that you don't want to, which makes you feel guilty. You might get angry, grumpy, or defensive with other people. You might treat yourself badly. You might go into an autopilot mode where you feel numb and lifeless. So that autopilot mode where I feel numb and lifeless, numb and lifeless, that's like whatever, doesn't matter anyway. Was it comme ça, comme ça? You can't change it. There's only so much you can control. A lot of that comes from this giving up, this resignation, like I can't do this. Feeling a loss of confidence or feeling incapable, procrastinating, putting it off, putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. I was talking to someone just previously about the finances, and she was like, "Oh my God, it's just a brain strain. I don't want to do it." And you can just see her going, I'll put it off, I'll put it off, I'll put it off, put it off. And if people who were here last week will remember that the one thing that you want to do with finances is do it now. When was the best time to invest? 20 years ago. When was the best time to start saving? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Start now. You might feel physical feelings, muscle tension, sickness. You might feel less than others. So this part of this activity always leaves you feeling crappy. You're supposed to be crappy. It's all right. What you then do is you challenge the thought. You say, well, what are some of the reasons why that thought isn't 100% true in all situations, at all times? Am I susceptible? As a female, I might be more susceptible to poverty in my old age, but does that mean that I'm going to be poor in my old age? Do I know women who weren't poor? Have I been able to provide for my children? Have I been able to put a roof over their head and food on their table? Yes, I have. Do I know people who have been able to have a good retirement with the money that they've earned and saved throughout their life? Well, yeah. So there's all of these possibilities that these things might turn out okay. There's times, common reasons why thoughts aren't true. There are times when the opposite is just as true. Someone has said or done something that means that the thought can't be totally true. Other people have told you reasons why it's not true, and you partly believe them. You have strengths that prove that the thought isn't always true. There are genuine reasons why things are likely to work out okay. When you don't believe you thought your helpful thought, you act differently. That one's pretty powerful because that's true for all of us. Yeah, when I don't believe my unhelpful thought, I act differently. Or when I believe something different to that thought, I act differently. I've overcome similar problems in the past, even when I thought that I couldn't. Every one of us has had problems that we've had. So what you can do is you can go back to a moment when you thought that triggered that bad emotion. And the closer you get to the belief, the better. So if you got to number 5 in that list and you go, okay, well, that's the thing that's scary. And it's usually I'm a loser, I'm incapable, I'm not enough. And you go back to that, and you go back to a situation or a moment when you thought that thought. And today we're focusing on money and finances, but you might have found yourself going somewhere else, and that's okay. But you take yourself back into that situation in your imagination. Close your eyes if you want to. The more you sort of get into this, the more effective it is. And you ask us, and you sort of be in that moment. You think that thought. You go, oh yeah, there's that feeling. Oh yuck, there's that feeling comes up, and you're like, when you have bad feelings, like I want to get away, I want to get away. You go, okay, I'm just going to stay here in this moment. Stay in that moment, and now replay the same experience without the thought. Yeah. And ask yourself, who am I without that thought? Who am I without that thought? And inevitably, people say something like, I'm just me, here in that moment. And they realize that the feeling and the thought have dominated both their mental space, their emotional space, and their perceptual space. Everything that you see, hear, smell, taste, feel has become dominated by that thought and the feeling that it creates. And that when you take yourself back to a moment without the thought, you discover that you get your senses back. Suddenly you can see clearly, you can hear clearly, you can even smell, taste, and feel clearly. And that's when we become so much more capable of so many more possibilities. The final thing I want to do, and I realize we're sort of just running out of time, is I want you to take that belief, particularly if you manage to get down to a fairly core belief, but as far as you got, just take it and ask yourself what the opposite of that is. Or if there's another way of taking the words that you wrote, often it's I'm not enough, like a good one's I'm not enough. Yeah. What's the opposite? I am enough. Okay. I'm a loser. I'm not a loser. What's the opposite of a loser? Winner. I'm a winner. Do I want to be a winner? No, not really. What do I want to be? I want to be enough. Okay, back to enough again. I'm enough. And then you go back to that moment where you had the thought that triggered the bad feeling, and you ask yourself, okay, what if I have that other thought? So this is what's called retraining thinking. It's also called cognitive restructuring. What happens if I think that other thought, the one that I've just come up with, I am enough? How does it feel? I feel very different, but I don't believe it. But is it true? Well, objectively, I know that it's true, but I don't believe it. Okay. So if objectively I know that it's true, why don't I believe it? Maybe I could learn to believe it, and you can learn to believe it. And the starting point is repetition. What you realize is that you've got a record. We call it a broken record because it keeps playing the same thing over and over and over. You're a loser, you're a loser, you're a loser. You'll never amount to anything. You'll never amount to anything. You'll never amount to anything. And we can actually change the record, put on another broken record. Yeah. Or a record that we can just keep on changing. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. I am good enough. I am good enough. I am good enough. I am lovable. I am lovable. I am lovable. I am worthy. I'm worthy. I'm worthy. I'm worthy of more. I'm worthy of more. I'm allowed to be wealthy. I'm allowed to be wealthy. I'm allowed to have money. I'm allowed to have freedom. I'm okay being me. And we play that record and we get a very, very different emotional response and a felt sense in our bodies. And the more we repeat it, the more it becomes habitual. Because at the moment we've got a habitual record playing over and over, something we've just done for years, decades, most of us. So when we change the record, it's hard work, but it becomes a new habit pretty quickly. Yeah, a few repetitions, a few days, a few weeks, and then by a few months, you'll have forgotten that you even had the old record playing. And if you think about the consequences, short term, long term, medium term, of thinking that new thought and feeling that new different feeling, how might that play out into your future if you're able to keep I am worthy, I am lovable, I am enough, I'm deserving, I like me. Where does that take you to into the future? All right. There is a series in the Uprise app where you can work through these modules on your own. There's heaps more than what I've been able to put into a webinar. Some really good mindfulness practices that take you through some of this. There's a link in the chat for feedback. Thank you all for your time today. Hope that you really got something beneficial out of the webinar today. Take care.